What kind of products did you sell like at the beginning?
I went home and I figured it all out, and I just threw them in a box and taped the label over it and sent them to Amazon.
How long do you think you used to sell for the retail arbitrage before like you moved to the online?
That's a very under-sourced category, I think, amongst Amazon arbitrage sellers.
How do you usually like, plan your day? What would you do like during the day for your business?
I was out doing retail arbitrage today because everybody's out of stock online. There's a lot of good opportunities. The biggest challenge are the things that I kind of take for granted now.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, today BQool invited an Amazon seller who lost his job due to the pandemic, but he didn't give up, and with $500 in his pocket he started an Amazon business, and now he turned it in over like $1 million in sales. I believe that Oliver has a great story to share with us, and we all can learn how we can succeed on Amazon. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Oliver Flips on our channel. Hello Oliver, how are you?
Hey, good. Glad to be here.
Yes, we also like appreciate that you come to our interview. And first, like, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, yes. I am Oliver, and
Mm-hmm.
I call Florida home. I've got a growing family. We've got our sixth child on the way.
Oh wow.
And my passion, as far as business is concerned, is systems and making
Mm-hmm.
everything run smoothly like a machine. And I think that's the unique value that I bring to my Amazon business and that I like to share with others.
Okay, that's great. For your previous like job, like was it also somehow related to Amazon business or not?
Yeah, it was actually automotive wholesale. And I
Mm-hmm.
started my own private label brand when I lost my company. The company I worked for went out of business in 2016. And I started basically the same company. And I later ended up selling my portion of the company to my partners. But it was
Oh.
basically selling, we would import products from China and sell
Mm-hmm.
them to major brands, like retail automotive chains like AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, and big distributors. So when I started Amazon, my initial idea was, what if I could take that wholesale business model and just do arbitrage with that same business model? And that's the reason I think I was able to succeed so quickly.
And what kind of products did you sell like at the beginning? Like what was it also related to some like automobile parts or it was something
On
completely
Amazon,
different?
no, I've never sold automobile parts. I do sell some automotive in the automotive category. That's a
Mm-hmm.
very under-sourced category, I think, amongst Amazon arbitrage sellers. So I really enjoy that category, but no parts.
Oh, what was kind of like your first product that you sold on Amazon?
The first product on Amazon, it was a ballpoint pen refill.
Oh.
So when
Mm-hmm.
I first started, I was only on eBay, and this was in June, July of 2020. Sorry, I went to Walmart and I saw on the clearance aisle I think there were like 100 or so of these refills, and they were $1. And I scanned them with my Amazon app, and they're selling for $13.
Oh wow,
And
30. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I had just started my Amazon account and I had no idea what I was doing. And I said, well, $1, Amazon fees, $5. I think maybe I could do this. So I still didn't have a lot of money. So it felt like a huge purchase at the time to spend like $120 on pen refills because I didn't know anything. I didn't know if they would sell.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home and I figured it all out, and I just threw them in a box and taped the label over it and sent them to Amazon. And they actually sold really quickly. So
Also, it was
I
kind of
was
like your
surprised.
beginning.
Yeah, ballpoint pen refills.
And from there, like, how did you go on? Like, what kind of other products did you start to sell? Oh, it was just like the same similar products.
Interestingly enough, I didn't go back to products like that until maybe a year later.
Mm-hmm.
So my first time on Amazon, I started during the time when American retailers are clearancing out toys during the summer and the early fall. And so I just went to maybe 10 Walmarts around my area and bought every clearance toy I could find and packaged them all up and sent them in to sell them during that Christmas. And that was my first 4 or 5 months on Amazon, was mostly toys.
So you started with like retail arbitrage, like at the time, right? And then
Correct,
like,
yeah.
and when did you move to the online arbitrage? Like, so now like you do like online wholesale, or what kind of business models do you do?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was out doing retail arbitrage today because the stores are such a wreck and everybody's out of stock online. There's a lot of good opportunities. But during the year, about 98% of what I sell is online arbitrage or wholesale. And most of it is online arbitrage. We're very early in the wholesale right now. We only
Mm.
have a couple of accounts set up. But yeah, when I was doing retail, there's always stuff all over my house. And I was having a hard time finding time to prep. And at that time, I didn't have any employees and I was overwhelmed. And I said, there's got to be an easier way. And that's when
Oh.
I decided to make the switch from retail to online. And it was the best decision I made.
Oh, how long do you think you used to sell for the retail arbitrage before like you moved to the online?
I was doing retail arbitrage from when I started in July of 2020 until around October of 2021. I was almost all retail arbitrage. And then in
Oh, so it's like,
October, yeah, I started going, I just started becoming obsessed with how to online arbitrage in a way that I could really grow my sales and my profit and do it with less work.
do you think like this is like because you changed to the online arbitrage help you to scale up your business?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. And what kind of difficulties do you think like you faced like at the beginning when you just started to sell on Amazon?
Difficulties.
Yeah, maybe
Well,
like some challenges. Yeah, like
yeah, there's always the biggest challenge are the things that I kind of take for granted now. So Amazon like returns or Amazon lost my box of stuff. They said they received it, but they said there was nothing in the box. That's something, people say all the time now. And it feels strange when you're new because you're thinking, how can they get a box and there's nothing in it? That's impossible.
mm,
I sent a full box. And of course, there's always I bought like 100 of this thing and then the price tanked. And one of the biggest, so I guess I would say the biggest challenge in my mind is when a price goes down and it's unprofitable, a beginner wants to hold on to it and wait until it becomes profitable again and then not lose any money.
mm-hmm.
But I think that's the wrong approach because not only do you have your money tied up in something now that is locked up until one day, and you don't know when that day is, that it'll be profitable again, but you don't know if that day will ever even come. So moving through items, even if you have to take a loss, if you made a bad decision, you should get that money back because it's not going to grow sitting there waiting for a day. Now, it might be a good idea to do that. It kind of depends on the item, but I usually set a time limit and okay, if it's not profitable again by this date, it just has to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good approach. But how do you think like you found a way like to overcome like those difficulties or challenges? Like, did you have like other friend like who also used to sell on Amazon, or maybe like did you watch on YouTube like when you face like some issues and find a way like to like solve it, or like how did you find a way to overcome it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't recall ever. I mean, if you talk to other people that sell on Amazon, everybody's kind of got the same complaint like, oh, the price
Mm-hmm.
tanked. Everybody hates that. So I started thinking about ways that, okay, I can't control if the price tanks unless I'm doing the tanking, right? I can control how I sell things or how many I buy. And so that led me to create a system. My overall strategy for my entire business is designed to limit the risk exposure to items that could potentially tank. And when they do tank, by using custom repricing rules to sell them on the way down so that you're never in a situation where you have a ton of something and it's priced high and you're not selling any of it and the price is just going down and you're still up here.
Mm.
So I really was very thoughtful when I said, how do I want my business to run? What can I make automatic? How can I lower my risk and keep turning my capital and taking losses early? These are all the frustrations that I said, how do I make this as easy as possible? And that's kind of how I came to where I am today.
How do you usually like plan your day, and like what would you do like during the day like for your like business?
It's pretty varied because I really like the fact that the freedom that comes with it. I like the time flexibility. So in the morning, I'm usually up early. I'm doing things like going to the gym, having breakfast with the
Mm.
kids, stuff like that. But a large portion of the middle of the day, I'm spending either sourcing myself, looking at the business and where we are now, and trying to figure out what is the next thing that I have to do that can influence or direct the people that I work with to
Mm-hmm.
make the business have a greater result. Well, I'm
And
always thinking about the business, where we are,
mm.
what are our problems, and I'm kind of every day I'm kind of just thinking, how can I hack a little bit more away from the business to make it simpler and still get the same result? I want the least amount of moving parts possible to still get a good result, and that's kind of always what I'm working towards. These days, it's trying to find wholesale suppliers, develop relationships, find great items that those wholesalers provide so that I can, because that's much, much less work of ordering, but potentially bigger volume. And so it goes back to
Mm.
that. How can I do less work and increase my results?
And do you think like how did it change like from the beginning? Because when you just started like Amazon business, like was it different from what like you used to do and what you do now? The way you organize your day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first started, it was find as much as possible, buy as much as possible, ship as much as possible, and it was just a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
There was no real flow. And so now I try and think, what's the best way to arrange this so that it doesn't stress me out, doesn't stress out anybody that works for me. Like I want everything to feel easy. It's still work, but I don't want it to be frustrating. I just
Hmm.
want it to move, like I picture it as a watch. A
Yeah, like a
watch
watch, like. Hmm.
yeah, it has a bunch of gears and they're designed in a way that it keeps time perfectly or as close to perfect as you can get. And a watch, if it runs out of battery, it stops. But other than that, there's no real problems with it. So I want
Hmm.
my business to run like that. I want it to just be the same consistent action over and over. And to do that, you have to have the right parts and the right sizes in the right places. And so I'm always thinking about how can I build a better watch? What can I
Hmm.
adjust to make it be as consistent as possible day in and day out?
I also heard like that you have like designed a lot of different systems which can help you to manage your work better. And can you tell a little bit more about the systems you use?
Yeah, so I guess there's two kind of systems that would fall into that category. And one is an automation. So repricing, for example, if I'm buying, I've got 1,000, 1,500 SKUs in my catalog, how do you manage the pricing for all that? So I set up an automation and the prep center enters the cost into inventory lab when they create a shipment, and that's imported into the repricer. And once the repricer has that listing, it automatically assigns a strategy and turns on repricing and sets the minimax. So that way, things are getting purchased and things are getting input into the system and it's doing everything I want, but I don't have to touch it. I maybe just check in on it a couple of times a week and make sure everything is working right. Or I
Hmm.
don't even have to do that. Somebody else can do that.
So you just
The
need to find a
other
way like to manage them.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that kind of leads into the second type of system, which is front loading all of the work. And so, if I think for days about how do we decide how much of something to buy, I came up with a criteria and then a ranking system. So, if an item meets this criteria, it's ranked this, and we buy this many, which is dependent on the rank and the number of sellers and things, but it's a basic rule. And if it meets this other set of criteria, then we buy this many. If it meets this other set of criteria, we buy this many. And if it doesn't meet any of the criteria, we don't buy it. So there's only
Hmm.
four real ranks. So if I'm sourcing, if somebody's sourcing for me, it doesn't matter who's sourcing. Does it meet this criteria? If so, buy it and buy this many. So nobody
Hmm.
has to think when they're sourcing or purchasing. They only have to say, does it meet this criteria? Yes or no. If it's yes, you buy it. If it's no, you don't buy it. So now you're part of the machine. Like you've designed the process and now you work for the process, which is much easier than having to think through everything and all the details. It takes a lot of
Hmm.
energy to do that. So I wanted to use all the energy up front and make the system, and then now I can live in the system. And I'm just like, the system is kind of my boss. I don't make decisions. The system tells me, does it meet this or not? And then I know what to do.
Oh, that's interesting. And what did you learn about like, those systems? Like, was it somewhere from previous works, or you just designed it by yourself and implemented
I
to
have
Amazon
no
business?
idea. I mean, I'm sure that all my experiences, I can't think of any one place where it's like, I learned how to do that. I just don't know that there is one. But all my experiences, that's just the idea that I had. So it's kind of a cumulative effect of all these places I've worked or people I've learned from.
Oh, I think that the way like to succeed on Amazon is also like quite related to those systems. And but what do you think is the secret to succeed on Amazon?
The secret to succeed on Amazon.
If you think like there is like or maybe like things which would be the most related to success on Amazon, or yeah, like if you think there are.
Yeah, the secret is that it's not a secret. It's just buy more and
Mm-hmm.
sell it faster and make sure it's profitable overall.
Mm-hmm.
That's I mean, I you don't need a system. I just like it. It's easy. I feel like it's a lever, but you can just find things, and if you can sell them for more than you bought them for and cover your fees and your expenses and make a profit, do that as many times as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
system only, it's kind of like I can run, I don't know, like 5 or 6 miles an hour or maybe
Mm-hmm.
10 if I'm going really fast. But if I get in a car, I just push the pedal and I can go 100 miles an hour. So the system to me is just how can I get the same result or a better result, but less effort? So the
Mm-hmm.
system lets me buy more and sell more and make sure it's profitable. But that's the only secret. So you find profitable things and you sell them fast. And then you just figure out how to do that in a way that you figure out how to do that, like multiply yourself and do
Mm-hmm.
it faster and do it on a bigger scale.
Okay, I see. And how about like what do you think like on Amazon, there's a lot of people who fail. Like what do you think is like the main factors they fail? Or maybe like you saw like from some of your friends who sell on Amazon or maybe from your students. Why do you think like there's like some people who fail on Amazon?
The only people that I've known personally that I would say they failed, the only reason they failed is that they quit. I've never had, I've coached several dozen people at this point, and there's two groups of people. There's the people that stick with it, and they've all made it. They've have different degrees of success. Some are doing it full time. Some it just takes a little longer for them to get momentum. But the only people I've ever coached that didn't make it were the ones that just quit, disappeared, never heard from them again. Got frustrated because it wasn't clicking as soon as other people might, start to understand how to do it. And then they just say, well, it's not for me.
Yeah. So basically, people who fail is the people who give up, right?
That's my opinion. Yeah. Except
Hmm.
for maybe like pharma packs. I don't know what their deal was. They, I guess they just sold too much at a loss. But
Yeah.
everybody, all the individuals, I've told a lot of students this when they start to feel frustrated because they're in a rut and they can't find a lot of profitable things, or they had a good week and then they had a bad week. I tell them I've never had anybody who kept going who didn't eventually get it and then
Hmm.
succeed. And it's true. And they all say, okay. And then they keep going. And one day they call me and they say, like, I get it now.
Oh.
I understand. And now I've found my niche and sales are exploding, and things like that.
Perfect. But when it comes to the product, like, what do you think is the main criteria, like, for the product which will be suitable to sell on Amazon? Is there like anything you think would go like in the criteria which is good for Amazon to like for sell on Amazon?
Well, I'll tell you, my favorite things to sell are things that are small and light. So I
Mm-hmm.
like makeup, I like vitamins, I like some clothing accessories that aren't returned a lot, like gloves or beanies. And the reason it fits, yeah, I like that because it fits in my model well of I do a lot of replenishables. Online arbitrage, you don't have the option to buy as much as you want anytime you want. You have to wait for the best buying opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I like these smaller items, like a vitamin or a supplement cost 2 to 4 cents per month to store. So if I have the opportunity to buy a lot, like 3 or 4 months worth, that is okay with me because on the fourth month, when I sell my last one, it cost me only an extra 16 cents to hold the very last one. And on an item that I'm buying 4 months worth of, I should have at least $4 or $5 profit. So 16 cents doesn't really do anything to my profit. It's just the cost I pay to stay in the buy box longer and have more inventory and sell for longer at a profitable price and with the price fluctuations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my favorite. Small, cheap to ship. You can ship 100 makeups in a tiny box, and it costs $6 to ship at FBA. And that's my kind of product.
Oh, I see. I see. How about the products you wouldn't choose to sell? Is there like anything, like any criteria for those kind of products?
I will sell oversized items, but I don't like it because they cost a lot to ship in. The storage fees are
Mm-hmm.
higher. So the oversized stuff, my main thing that I really don't like is shoes and clothing. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people have success with it, and that's great. But for me, I noticed if I sold a pair of shoes that was profitable and then it got returned and then I sold it again, now it's break even in some cases, or there's a little profit. And then if it gets returned and sold again, now I'm selling it at a loss just to get rid of it. So anything like makeup and supplements, people don't return it. They open it and they
Mm-hmm.
eat it, or they put it on their face. Shoes, the profit was great, but the return rate was so high. I just thought, are we really making money? And if somebody returns their old pair of shoes, it causes hassle. So we had a lot of frustrations with shoes, and so I just said we're not selling shoes anymore. If it makes you upset, I just don't want to do it.
Right. So just like for any items which would be suitable to return, right? Wouldn't be great to sell.
Yeah, I mean, returns are part of the game. And I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who do really well with clothing, and that's awesome for them. It frustrated me, so I didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I knew clothes better, it might be more successful. But for me, the worst items to sell are the ones that you don't know well enough to make it easy. So
Yeah.
I guess I didn't know clothes well enough, and it was frustrating to me. And so I said, well, if it's frustrating, why don't I just take all of that energy and put it in this other place that's not frustrating? And even if I don't improve, I have improved because I'm not frustrated anymore. So building a business should be at least a little fun. Shouldn't
Yeah.
make you
Right.
want
Right.
to make you want to cry at dinner.
Yeah, I agree with you. When it comes to the product sourcing, like, do you have like some rules or like some strategies you usually follow to find the good products?
Yeah, I mean, the sourcing is a system.
Mm-hmm.
So, and The reason I like everything to fit in a box is because that makes it predictable. So when people get frustrated and they say I can't find anything good when I'm sourcing, I think it's because their system is not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a system. If you say I don't have a system, then you probably just have a bad system. Everybody has some kind of system. I'm always trying to figure out, like, I want somebody to be able to walk in off the street and read my standard operating procedure for sourcing and basically not know anything about Amazon and be able to find a profitable item, like a day of
Mm-hmm.
reading and trying it. So it's everything moves in a cycle. Websites have sales, and they rotate those sales, and you can use software. And right now I'm experimenting with a way that I believe will be able to have any one person come up with 50 to 60 buyable leads a day in just an hour or two of work. It's something I
Oh.
was
Mm-hmm.
playing with over the holidays, and I was trying to reverse engineer. It's kind of a long story, but I'm always playing with how can I get a better result faster and make it so that anybody can do it. Because if anybody can
Mm-hmm.
do it, I can hire people like to do it for me.
Yeah, right. So you don't need to spend time on it and focus on
Yeah.
something else. Thank you. And how about like the software you usually use for product sourcing?
I really like manual sourcing. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
non-negotiables are you have to have some kind of calculator app, and then you have to have
Mm-hmm.
Keepa. If that's all you can have, that's fine because you can
Mm.
still find good things. I really like using the tactical suite. I like using tactical arbitrage, bucket, and expander because again, I hate to keep like saying the same thing over and over, but tactical arbitrage is a system, and if you can understand it really well, you can get phenomenal results with very little work. And that's what a lot of what I teach people is how to exploit like tactical arbitrage to your advantage, because people are frustrated. They say, "Oh, I can't find anything," or "the stuff I find stinks or it tanks." And I just think that most people don't know how to use it in a way that gives them the advantage. They just want easy. And it can be easy, but you have to learn how to make it. You can't do what everybody else is doing and just press buttons.
Yeah, right, right. Okay, thank you. And how about like Keepa? Like, would it be fine like to do the little live demo for people who watch this video, like how to
Yeah,
use
sure.
Keepa?
As in we're on an item and we're reading the Keepa graph?
Yes, something like that. Like,
Or
so someone maybe like some of the tips or something like you think would be useful for people to know when they use Keepa.
yeah, so you can, because you can use Keepa to find items as well. Let me see. I've got a couple of examples, but I've got one good one here. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, yes.
So there are a lot of exceptions. There are a lot of Keepa charts that people might look at and say, I do not understand this. What is this doing? And over almost 3 years of doing this now, I've been able to figure out, like, I think I would call myself a Keepa expert. I know what's happening when I look at a Keepa chart, I mean, some charts you look at and you're just like, what is happening here? But that's
Mm,
pretty unusual that I see one and I don't have an idea of what's going on. But this one I love because the history shows a really awesome dynamic that is true on most products on Amazon. And the first thing here is the inverse relationship between the sellers and the price. So this is a Lego Ninjago dragon, started going on clearance at Walmart and Target, both online and in store, around fall summer of 2020. And that's when I got started. So naturally I was buying some of these. Then a really cool thing happened, and that is that the set retired right around Black Friday of 2020. And
mm,
this was remarkable to me because you've kind of got a perfect storm of things happening here. The set's retiring, so it's being phased out of retail. And then Amazon runs out of stock because when it's phased out of retail, Amazon is a retailer. You've also
right.
got the lockdown period of 2020 where a lot of things were hard to get and there was a lot of demand for things that people could do inside. And Lego was one of those things. And you've got the kickoff to the shopping season, which starts on Black Friday. And all of those things happened pretty much at the same time. And when Amazon went out of stock, you see the seller count goes from 50 to mid-December, it's hovering in the mid-teens here. And the price just went parabolic. So from the retail price of $82, it went all the way up to a peak of $182, which is an incredible return. And I was fortunate to pick up a few at 45 that I sold up here because I was buying in-store retail. But something else I did, this is something that people can take advantage of when the opportunity is right. When Amazon would come back in stock, I would have Keepa alerts set, which you can set just by tracking the product. So Amazon's out of stock, they come in stock, you can buy as many as you possibly can for the retail price of 82, and then when, I mean, the rank at this time was so good, even, it was sub 50,000, that you could sell it instantly for double the price that you paid for it. So I bought, I can't remember exactly, it was somewhere around half a dozen. I managed to get my hands on from Amazon for $82 and then sold them a week later for 150, 160, 170.
Oh, wow,
And then
that's nice. Mm.
yeah. And I mean, that's just, first of all, you're doing yourself a favor. You're buying it from Amazon, which means they're going to run out of stock faster, which means
Mm.
you've got more safety when you're selling it. But here, sellers go down, prices going up during the busiest part of the year. And then as supply caught up and people came in stock, the price comes right back down. And this price and this seller graph is almost a mirror image. And I always really loved that about this chart because it's not always the case. But this one just was a great textbook example of the dynamics between the seller count and the price. I'll throw one more thing out there. If you ever see a seller count increasing like this, but the price isn't going down, it's staying
Mm-hmm.
flat, I've always taken that as a sign to buy as much as I can of that item, because what it generally means is that the supply is increasing, but the demand is so big that it's not like the supply still isn't enough for the demand. So the
Mm-hmm.
supply is increasing, and the demand is so great that the price isn't going down. Because if you see most items, the supply increases, the price goes down because there's too much supply. There's not enough demand. It's simple economic principle. So if I ever see an item where the sellers are going up and the price is flat, I'm always like, how can I get my hands on as much of this as possible? Because that's almost guaranteed to be a winner.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think those are like super useful tips. How about like keep? Do you use like usually use a Keepa to also find for the good products to sell on Amazon?
Yeah, I like to use Keepa Product Finder to
Mm-hmm.
export ASINs to run
Mm-hmm.
through tactical arbitrage. Well, I was going to say, when you go to an Amazon listing, what's the first thing you do? You look at the Keepa chart. So it really doesn't matter what you're selling. It only matters what the Keepa chart looks like. And everything on that Keepa chart, you can define in a number and put it into Keepa Product Finder. So if you say, what's the perfect Keepa chart? Amazon's not there. The price is, at least $20, so
Mm-hmm.
that I know that there's a good chance of margin. It's got a good rank. The rank goes up and down a lot. You can put all that into a product finder and get a list of 10,000 items that meet all those things that you want to see when you go onto an Amazon listing. And then you run it through tactical arbitrage. It's not the most surgical way to find really good sales, but it is one way that doesn't take a lot of time that you could scoop some things that would make you some profit.
Yeah, that's true. How about like you do like a little live demo for the Keepa and try to find some good items which would be which could be possible to sell?
Oh,
Would it be
sure.
fine?
I can't. We don't have the time maybe to run it through tactical arbitrage, but I will tell you what kind of criteria I might put in here. So for sales rank, I like to use a 90-day average because that removes seasonality
Mm-hmm.
from the equation. Because a sales rank that's currently good might be for any reason. I like the 90-day average. So if I were going to look, so right now I probably wouldn't be looking at toys because the hottest toys have just gotten a bump to,
Yeah.
the top. So my category, there's a sweet spot between 40,000 and like 85,000 where I find some of the best health and beauty items are in that range there. And I like to see a drop from -20 to 30. So what this drop is, I'm just defining that I want the rank to have a nice up and down movement. And you can make it as tight as you want. And by tight, I mean you could go -5 and 5. That's going to be a really tight range. I like to give it a little space. That just shows that it's having like a good sales movement. Buy box we'll do in a minute. The new price, I kind of don't like to sell anything under $20. It's just rare that you're going to find something at a retailer for that cheap that there's any margin that makes it worth it. And let's see, I skip all this stuff. I'm not selling anything used. And I said beauty and personal care. Gets us down to 34,000. Sometimes I'll even search for specific brands, but when I'm punching it into tactical arbitrage, I kind of want a lot of results. The new offer count. So here I'm always stuck because it does depend on the rank. Like if I can find something that's ranked sub 5,000 in a category, I'm fine jumping on with 40 or 50 sellers because I know that inventory is moving. But for this range that I've defined, I like to see a maximum, like an absolute maximum of 20 sellers. Actually, I probably really like 15. And I want to see at least 3 sellers. And so let's do 2. So what I try to do here by saying at least 2 sellers is I want to get rid of the private label stuff because I don't want to see that. The downside to this is there could be some legitimate, good, arbitrageable items that aren't private label that do just only have 1 seller or even 0 sellers. So you kind of have to say, okay, do I want to filter through a bunch of private label junk, or do I just want to eliminate that altogether and maybe miss some good items as well? I usually go with the latter. So now we have 8,000. I like Amazon to be out of stock all the time. Oh, we don't want digital products. I don't know how many of those there are in health and beauty, but so 90 days out of stock. I just like Amazon to be out of stock 100% of the time. So I put from 100, and I hate selling with Amazon. I only do it when it was an accident. And I do tend to put, let's see, rating a minimum of 4 so that I'm not selling anything that might get high returns, and probably at least 10 reviews. And then that, 4,800 products, I'll do a couple of things. So once I get all the results, I'll go to 5,000 and I'll max out the rows.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just export it as a CSV, throw it in tactical arbitrage reverse search. So that's getting
Oh.
me the low hanging fruit. That's the good stuff. But I also like to go through and look manually, because inevitably you're going to find some bundles and possibly items that maybe don't have a UPC attached to them,
Mm-hmm.
that a simple Google search, or if let's see if I can find a good example. When I've sourced so many vitamins and supplements and makeup products, that if I found a makeup product and I said, man, this is really great, the Keepa chart looks amazing, I want to buy it, wherever I'm at is out of stock. So I'm on Ulta, they're out of stock. Well, now I'm going to check Kohl's, I'm going to check Sephora, I'm going to even check Lucky Vitamin because they have makeup. A lot of people don't know that. I might check JCPenney, I might check Dillard's. And the funny thing is, if you take the title of that makeup and punch it into Google, your top results are going to be Walmart, Target, Ulta, maybe Kohl's, Amazon is always going to be a top result. And all of the sites where you're most likely to find it in stock and for a good price, if they're even in the Google search results, they're going to be page 2, 3, 4. A lot of times I find that they're not even in the search results. But if oh, they sell this brand, or they may sell this brand at Belk, you can go on belk.com and you can just punch it in the search bar, and then you're likely to find it. So kind of having a mental catalog of where might I be able to find this item can help you find things, because guess what? If you punch it into Google and you don't get anything as a result, but you go to belk.com and you punch it in the search bar and you do find it, how many other people are going to belk.com and searching for the item? They're probably
Right.
putting it in Google. I don't find it anywhere. And then they give up and they go on to the next thing. So it takes 10 seconds to go, 10 seconds each to go to 5 or 6 different sites if you know that they're there, and search for that item. And I found a lot of items that way. It comes up in tactical arbitrage. It's out of stock, but I end up finding it at a kind of an adjacent website to the one that tactical arbitrage gave me as a result. And the only reason I found it is because I knew it might be there. So unfortunately, just scanning through here, I don't see any obvious examples that would do that.
Yeah, but it's okay. I think it's really useful, like just with
Yeah.
like all those settings and everything. And yeah, like I also agree that it's best that you have like a list of sources, like a list of websites which potentially you can check, and maybe like even for products which are out of stock now, like maybe you could save them up and maybe check them like a next month or like next week and see if they're show up there or somewhere.
On tactical arbitrage, if you save an item to a list, then you can always pull up that list and with one click run it through a reverse search. So anything that's out of stock, you can just save it to a list, and then once a week go in and, even if you have a few hundred items on your list, it's only going to take 10 to 15 minutes to run a scan. And you can have a list of items that are potentials, and just it's not a lot of work to click buttons. So you can just do that once a week, and could find some good stuff that way that other people have given up on.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. And how about like, let's say like someone want to start an Amazon business like in 2023, how much money you think they should have like in order to start Amazon business?
Well, I'm of the opinion you can start with whatever you have. So if
Mm-hmm.
you have $500, start with $500. The more you have, the quicker you can grow it. You just want to make sure you've got $20 a month for Keepa, and then $10 to $20 a month for a calculator extension. And personally, I think people should use a repricer from like as soon as they've got inventory going into Amazon. So you want to set aside some money for that as well. To be honest, I think if you want to have enough funds to start making some serious income within 6 to 12 months, probably $5,000 is a great starting place.
Five
You've got
thousand. Mm.
yeah, you've got enough so that you can try and spend $50 to $100 a day. Because when you're sourcing, when you're first starting, you're not going to find amazing things every day. You're still getting
Mm-hmm.
the hang of it, but that gives you enough of a cushion so that you can keep paying for your tools, you can pay for the materials, and you can still buy things and send them in and not worry about like, I need my Amazon payment right now. I think
Right.
5,000 is a great cushion. If you don't have 5,000, start with whatever you have. That's the beauty of it. You can do that. You don't have a bunch of overhead. You don't need 5,000, but it's a lot easier if you have 5,000 or more.
And let's say like if you start your Amazon business like over again, like would you do like something different, or you would do like exactly the same you did before?
I wouldn't do it the same. I would do it a lot different. I would do OA much earlier. I would get a prep center much earlier. I would use a repricer much earlier. I think my biggest mistake was not hiring people soon enough and trying to do it all
Mm-hmm.
myself. And I came really close to burning out, but I kept going because I didn't have a choice. I think the thing is you only have so many hours in a day and you have to figure out how can I like I was working 12, 14 hours a day driving everywhere, buying things, getting home, prepping them, sending them in. They're just like, it wasn't freedom in the beginning. And first you need to outsource your pricing to a repricer. It's pennies on the dollar for what a repricer does. Thousands and thousands of price changes a day, moves your inventory faster, gets you paid faster. The next thing is outsource your prep to a prep center and stop doing
Mm-hmm.
prep yourself. Especially, I mean, if you're doing OA, it's a no-brainer. If you're doing RA, hire a neighborhood kid. I hired my
Mm.
sister and now I pay her a salary and she does everything I don't want to do in the business, which is mostly like the logistics and things. I just started, I hired her to prep. I said, I'll pay you X amount an hour. I need to go out and buy stuff. You prep the stuff. And she learned so much about the business. It was a no brainer. I was like, well, I need somebody to help me run this thing. And she already was trained. So it doesn't have to be a VA. I know people that have neighborhood kids take off stickers, polybag stuff, and they know how to do shipments. I mean, a 16-year-old can do an FBA shipment, you know?
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good. And
It was
how
a
about like
long way to answer the question. What would I
yeah, yeah.
do? What would I do different? I would outsource earlier. That's pretty much
Mhm.
it.
And how about like repricer? Like when like do you start to use the repricer?
Man, I started, it's probably only been about the past year I've been using repricer, maybe year and a half. And
Oh.
that's a huge reason for my growth was I don't even know how I did it without a repricer. It was like I'm completely blown away that and I tell everybody now, when you send in your first shipment to Amazon, get a
Mhm.
repricer and
Mhm.
start it early because I mean, again, I'm puzzled as to how I could have ever done it without a repricer.
So before like you used to reprice manually, is it like for like almost a year, right?
I would go in, actually, I feel like I remember the time when I said I need to get a repricer. I heard
Mhm.
somebody saying, and this is somebody with a big Amazon wholesale business. I think he's like top 30
Oh wow.
or
Uh-huh.
or top 50, but he said he would go in like once every 2 days and change all of his prices, and he had a ton of stuff. and
Mhm.
and he said, like, why would I do this? Why am I wasting this time doing this? I'm doing the same thing. Like, why don't I have a repricer? I don't know if I was afraid that it would sell my stuff for lower than I wanted it to, or I don't know. I feel like I had a picture of what a repricer did, but it wasn't accurate. I just didn't
Mhm.
know. So I started doing research and I said, what can a repricer do? And it's been like the best thing ever.
Perfect. Yeah, because I think like really repricer it can help you like save a lot of time and sell you like help you to sell stuff quicker because yeah, you cannot physically change all those prices like all day long. Yeah, it's I think it's quite impossible, especially if you have like 500 listings, 300 listings. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
it's
won't
a
have.
key part of my strategy now. At
And
my peak, I had close to 2,000 listings, and there's
wow,
no way you
2000.
can reprice that all. I mean, there's just no way. That's all you
Mhm.
do.
And what kind of like repricing rules do you usually use?
So my basic strategy is I want to steal the buy box, and then I want to race to the bottom, and then I want to go all the way back up and let whoever I was racing sell out,
Mm-hmm.
and then I start over again, and then I steal the buy box again. And so I
Mm.
found that this ends up, things sell faster and they sell for more because I'm not just going down to the buy box and then staying there. I'm giving it
Mm-hmm.
back. And see, if I have 3 months worth of inventory, I can do this over and over and over again and kind of force people to sell out because their repricers are following me down. But I have more inventory than them. I've got 3 months worth. So I'm completely fine missing sales for a day or two and letting them have sales. And then I try and steal it again. And doing that over and over has absolutely done wonders for my profits. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that accomplishes is if an item does tank, I'm catching it on the way down instead of sitting up here at a high price. If I'm priced at $40 when I send it in and the price was like 42, and then it gets checked in and now the price is 38 and I'm still at 40, and then the price is 34 and I'm still at 40. I want, if the price is going to tank, I'd rather break even and sell out and not make any money than to still be priced at 40% ROI. Now I'd have to sell at a loss to get rid of it when I could have just made, just a couple bucks just racing to the bottom with everybody else, and then I don't ever have to sell it again if I don't want to. But so I'm always trying to steal the buy box and then giving it back. That's basically it.
Mm.
When
Okay,
I do
perfect.
steal the buy box, I'm
Mm.
raising the price by small increments until I lose it, and then I
Mm-hmm.
try and steal it again.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And how about like other tools you usually use for your Amazon business?
Keepa,
Mm-hmm.
the tactical suite, and then the repricer, it's pretty much it. I like
Mm-hmm.
to play with different tools, like Ace and Gadget is a fun thing I like to play with, but I wouldn't say that it's a main tool because I don't use it every day. Well, I guess
Mm-hmm.
it does show up on my listings, so it's there as a reference. But as far as sourcing, that's pretty much it. And I have Seller Candy does my reimbursements, so that's all kind of on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And then just internal tools, like we use monday.com to keep, like, we have a ticket system, the people that work for me, so that's how we track our projects. Just little things like that.
Okay, great. And how about like you
Oh,
just made? Oh yeah, yeah.
and Notion.
Notion. Oh.
So
Mm-hmm.
everything, so if I hired somebody tomorrow and I said, this is how our business runs, I would just show them our Notion. It's everything we've ever done. Like if you say, how do I source? You go into my
Mm-hmm.
Notion and this is how we source. This is what we do. These are the steps we take. These are the criteria. How do we reprice? You go into the Notion. Oh, I have this problem. And if it's not in the Notion, we add it to the Notion so that if I disappear off the face of the earth for 2 weeks, nobody has to
Nothing will
ask me any
change.
question. Yeah,
Mm.
everybody, all the answers are in the Notion. Nobody has to ever message me. It's in the Notion. So
Oh, perfect. So you have like
it's
kind of
the,
like a step-by-step SOP like in Notion for all the
yeah,
employee who work for you.
every answer to anything. How do I
Mm-hmm.
log into this? Where's this? What's the answer to this question? It should all, like, anything that anybody should need to ask me is in the
Mm-hmm.
in the Notion.
And
So it's accessible.
and like how much time do you spend like on creating like all those SOPs? Like I guess like you been creating like kind of like step by step, right? I mean like it was not like one day you just made it up. Like it was like all during the process, right?
Yeah, I started when it was just me because I said one day people are going to work for me. If I wait, I'm going to have a million things to do and then I'm going to create SOPs.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell everybody, like, while you're not busy, make an SOP, make it so that people can understand it and just put it somewhere. And not only is it good if you hire somebody, now you have a record of this is how we do this thing. But when you force yourself to write out the steps of what you do. Okay, step 1 this, step 2 that, step 3, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why do I do step 2 before step 3? Maybe I need
Mm-hmm.
to do this first. By putting it out of your brain and onto paper, you see where things don't make sense or maybe where they could be better. So by writing an SOP, that actually has a huge potential to make your business better because the SOP becomes an extension of your thinking. It's out of your brain and you can see it with your eyes. And now you see what's wrong with it, or
Mm,
you
right.
see that it's not as good as it could be. And then it's so easy to just, oh, well, what if I do this here? And you can add it in. And when it's in your brain, you can't do that because you're like in the middle of it. You're doing it.
Mm.
You're not thinking about, let me experiment and slide this extra thing in here. But when it's when it's outside of you, it makes it almost effortless to spot those things.
And like, how about like in general, like what kind of processes do you usually outsource and what do you usually do by yourself?
So now I still like to source because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a treasure hunt. And I pretty much outsource, like, I consider my main job to be what do I have to change about the way we do things that kind of trickles down to everybody that works for me
Mm-hmm.
and gets a result, gets a different result. So I'm always thinking about like, oh, sales have plateaued. Why did they plateau? And then I'm kind of investigating my own business and seeing, well, we'll try this. Do we just need to buy more? Or like, that's one of my big reasons I transitioned to wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hire more people. I want to get a better result. I want to be more efficient. Wholesale is a great way to do that. So my main job is, what's the direction of the company? How do we get there? Do we have the cash flow to do it? I do all the finances still, but I
Mm.
outsource anything that, like, repricing, prep, outsourced. I do have a bookkeeper. So the heavy financial stuff is outsourced because I'm not an accountant. I don't want to learn to be an accountant.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
full-time job. Somebody else
Mm-hmm.
can do that. The reimbursement stuff, tracking down lost shipments, I don't need to do that. We give Seller Candy their cut and they can track everything down. Sourcing is outsourced. For a while, I outsourced account health, but when you outsource account health, kind of are forced to learn how account health works to get the people you outsourced it to the information they need. And
Mm-hmm.
so we learned so much about managing account health that eventually we were like, it's actually less effort for us to do this ourselves than it is to outsource it, because we've got all the stuff and we don't have to wait for anybody. So that we don't outsource. But I mean, pretty much everything. The only two things I do, because I like to do them, are think about the company and how I can make it better, and
Mm-hmm.
source, because I love to source.
And when it comes to working with Amazon VAs, like, do you have like any specific strategies or rules you have like when you work with them?
I'll tell you what I would do if I could go back and do things differently. And I think the way I did it was fine. It was just really time intensive, and there was it took a lot of time to get it where I wanted it to be. If I had to start over, I would go to an agency, trains VAs to source for Amazon FBA, and I would just pay them.
Oh, so it's okay like to pay a little bit more, but you will have like a qualified person who will do this like jobs, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of good agencies I know, but here's the thing. You hire somebody who's never sourced and you spend a ton of time teaching them, which is fine, but all that's all time that you could have spent making more money sourcing
Mm-hmm.
things, buying, selling. Or you could hire maybe somebody who used to be a drop shipping VA, which is its own problem because drop shipping is a lot different than Amazon FBA. Or you could just say, okay, here's $1,500 or however much an agency charges, and you get a VA who already knows how to source, and you basically just say, this is the stuff I want to look for, and you
Mm-hmm.
tell them what to do, and you don't have to teach them. The time it takes to train a VA, I think it's worth way more than $1,500 in your time, because I could probably find that and profit in a day of sourcing without a problem online, and it's going to take you longer than one day to train a VA.
Yeah, right.
So I just pay somebody to do it. That's the easiest way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I agree with you. And how about like when you don't do like Amazon business, like do you like to read like any kind of books or watch some kind of like YouTube videos?
So I've got a bunch of farm animals. It's a weird thing. I actually like to watch the ducks eat.
Oh.
Ducks, when they eat,
Uh-huh.
it's really amusing. And I sit out there, and ducks, they're kind of boring animals.
Mm-hmm.
I sit there, it's Florida, so the weather's usually nice, and I just watch them eat, swim around.
It's
And
like
that
some people
helps me
like to
clear my
watch.
head.
Yeah, like some people
Yeah.
like to watch at the fire, right? And some people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
so in the summer, I live really close to some great beaches, and
Mm-hmm.
I like to read a lot. I'll walk on the beach and read, get a tan, jump in the ocean, and maybe I have like a stand-up paddleboard I take out. In the winter, I kind of boring. Like, sometimes I build furniture just for fun. I got a ton of kids. I like to hang out with my kids. I'm not really big. Sometimes I'll play like PlayStation or watch a movie with them or something, but I don't like to sit in front of YouTube. It's just not my thing unless I'm
All
learning
right.
something. But yeah, that's, hobbies, like to read, but family takes up a lot of my time these days. They're big, they need a lot of attention. They want to play games and paint pictures, and so if I'm not working, I'm probably with the kids or the wife.
Okay, great. And yeah, I want to congratulate you on achieving the milestone, like 1 million US dollars in sales. I
Yeah.
think that's great. Like, what kind of things, like maybe like top three or top few things you learned on the way, like to achieve this milestone? What would it be?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the top three things would probably be: don't stray from the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Buy more, sell more, make sure it's profitable. That's number one. Number two is when you start getting a lot of momentum and doing a lot of volume, you probably want to start outsourcing some things before you feel ready. It's always nerve wracking to give a part of your business to somebody else to do. You never fully feel ready, but once you do it, it's a big breath of fresh air. And the third thing is, if an item is a loser, just take the loss and move on. Don't hang on to it. Get your capital back. I like to go deep on the winners when I replenish them. I like to see a lot of winners, but losers happen. And if you have a losing item, just take it, move on. If losing on an item is so bad that it can wreck your business, you went like way too heavy on that item. You should
Mm.
diversify a little bit. So you should always be able to take a loss on an item. It shouldn't be a big deal. It should only be a small part of your business. That's it. Keep it simple. Buy, sell, buy more, sell more.
Mm-hmm.
Outsource before you feel ready, and just take the loss and move on if you have to take a loss on an item.
Right, and enjoy the process, right? And when do you usually do like the break even, like when the products don't sell?
What do I do?
Yeah, like when do you usually decide like to do the break even, like if the
Oh,
product doesn't sell?
it depends. For a while, it had to be at least 4 or 5 months
Mm-hmm.
before I would just liquidate it or try and sell it at a loss. Now I really want in 2023 to have more of an efficient business. I don't want a bunch of inventory hanging around. So if I buy an item that I know is a slower mover and it just takes a while to sell, it's still profitable. That's fine. But I'm not like, if I send in an item and it's a dud, I'm just trying to get rid of it as soon as possible. I used to have, like I said earlier, a couple thousand SKUs. I was testing a ton of stuff. I was building a catalog. Now I really want to take that down to like 300 or 400 and start going deep and getting supplier relationships with some of these brands and things that I like to sell, and just making it more consistent, less work overall. So these days, I'm focusing much more on faster moving items. And so if something's not profitable, if it's just not selling, like 30 to 60 days is kind of the window where I'm looking at, okay, what do I do with this? How am I going to
Mm.
get rid of it? If you're reading Keepa correctly, nothing should be not moving. Like everything should be selling. It's just, are you going to sell it at a loss? Or I had a few things that I bought that Amazon suddenly came back in stock on. Did not expect that. I'm not liquidating them until after Christmas, because Amazon could go out of stock on December 20th and I can make a profit. So I'm looking at these in mid-November. It's worth holding on to for another month, because odds that Amazon will go out of stock are higher than any other time of the year. And then after Christmas, I look at everything. This one didn't work out. Like, I went with a good probability of being able to profit on it. I only had to wait a month. And then if it doesn't work out, you just sell it and move on.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. And can you tell us more about like your online course?
Yeah, so my online course, Six Figure Sourcing,
Mm-hmm.
is basically, here is how I source. I don't go into the systems as much, but I do. Sorry, I actually added to it earlier in the year. It's part a beginner's course. Here's how to get set up on Amazon. Here's all the basics of eBay and how to start selling on Amazon and eBay, where to find items, a bunch that are really low cost. And then the second part of that is a deeper dive into some of the methods that I use on Tactical Arbitrage,
Mm-hmm.
Keepa Product Finder, how to read Keepa, how to use BrickSeek, things like that. So again, it goes back to, I've had great success with Tactical Arbitrage, and I kept talking to people and they're like, oh, I hate that. And what I discovered was most people just aren't using it in the way that it should be used. It's a powerful
Mm-hmm.
tool. And so I wanted to have a course that showed people how to use that to get great results and hopefully more leads with less work.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, we're definitely gonna put the links to the online course and also to your Instagram so people can go and find you. And yeah, thank you so much for today's interview. Like you shared a lot of useful tips and knowledge. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And also good luck with your new milestone. You want to reach like 2.2 million, right, in
Yep.
2023. So
I want
yeah.
to double it. Thanks
So
so much
good
for
luck
having
on
me.
that.
Thank Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
So yeah, like see you next time then.
All right.
Bye bye.